Chapter 2. Burn It Down. The bus drove away, creating a small cloud of dust in its wake, which disappeared into the sky. Zane and Yulia stood in the roaring heat with a backpack and a suitcase each, containing clothes and other needed valued items. Life was about to change for them. The next 4 years would be spent learning and growing in a place so far away from home. Not far in the distance, up a lightly forested mountain, sat a large tower, surrounded by stone walls. The ancient architecture of the walls and tower, accompanied by the luscious forest, shocked Yulia.
Is that it? That's Banjiro Senior School?
I would guess so. We should probably start walking. Zane grabbed hold of his suitcase and began walking across the road towards the footpath which led up the mountain. When halfway across, he noticed the lack of accompanying footsteps. Yulia stood completely frozen, not moving an inch from the bus stop. Zane turned around fully, left his suitcase on the road, and walked back to Yulia. She seemed concerned. Zane could read her facial expressions well and could tell something was off. Standing in front of her, he asked, "What's wrong?" Yulia rested her head against Zane's chest. He looked down at her soft black hair.
I'm worried.
Zane didn't move or react. He let her rest against him and asked, "About what?"
Leaving Mom? Living here for 4 years? I don't know if that's what I want anymore.
Zane sighed. He knew something like this would happen. She had put on a brave face before she left and seemed really excited about going to the school to learn. In reality, she was afraid of leaving everything behind. I read over the school introductory forms before we came. Every 4 months we have a 2-week break. We also have the whole of December free. So we will see your mum then. There's a phone here as well, so you can call her whenever you wish. If worst comes, you can always simply drop out. It won't be that hard to organize. And remember, you've got me beside you. You'll be fine. It was rare for Zane to give helpful advice on these sorts of topics. He usually concerned himself with protecting Yulia and his health. He sometimes aided with schoolwork too, as he needed some form of education, but he usually left matters like school to Yulia and her mother to figure out. A warmth spread through her on finding he had gone out of his way to help her, now that it was just the two of them.
Thanks, Zane. You're right.
Come on, we should start heading up. As Zane turned and stepped back onto the road, he sensed a new aura suddenly approaching. One he couldn't identify. Hold on. What is this? He held up his hand, signaling to Yulia not to proceed. Wait a moment. This confused her. Regardless, she trusted her protector and remained still on the footpath. Zane stepped in front of his suitcase, standing in the middle of the road. He stared intently down the dirt track, waiting patiently for the aura he sensed to come into sight. His unique power was one that his race owned and used expertly, especially for protectors. The ability to sense auras. The skill allowed him to have a head start in identifying whether someone posed a threat. Zane couldn't sense this aura accurately though. It was moving rather fast towards his location.
Zane? What is it?
An unknown aura. I wish to identify what race owns this aura before we go on, answered Zane, keeping his glare to the dirt road. Yulia nodded, understanding what he wished. She rarely argued with his decisions. Soon enough, a faint form appeared down the long road, moving quickly towards Zane's location as anticipated. As the blur in the distance soon became clear, the aura was easier to sense. Although it was moving fast, Zane could sense that the aura itself was a mixed amalgamation of materials. Stone, metal, gold, cloth, wood, concrete. He could feel it all mixed within this single aura. Zane had an idea of what race it could be. He heated his hands with his powers and prepared for any possible threat.
Whoa! Hey! Move out of the way!
An echo came from the person fast approaching. Soon enough, Zane could see it clearly. A teen boy on a bicycle with a bag on his back. Even though it was a fairly flat surface, the boy was moving faster than he should have.
I can't stop this thing! Move!
He can't stop it? Could it be?
We have to help him!
Shouted Yulia, pointing over to the boy who was coming ever closer. He didn't feel the need, but decided to comply and use his power to help this boy. Zane took a deep breath, focusing his energy and power into his clenched fists. He raised his right fist until it was level with his eyes. He looked at it, and around the fingerless glove, fire appeared and engulfed his fist. He stepped back and fell to his right knee, while punching the ground as hard as he could. With his eyes tightly closed, he focused immensely in order to create a line of fire. Pyrokinesis was a rare power, only found within demons. Zane was able to use this power very effectively, as he had trained himself to use it in many damaging ways. The line of fire moved, leaving a burnt black trail on the ground as it quickly aimed towards the incoming bicycle.
Wait, what are you doing?
Zane was in full control of the fire. He directed it for the bicycle's wheels. Within a split second, the line of fire split, forming two strands, each of which found a wheel and latched on like an insect. The bicycle's wheels caught fire, and the immense heat burnt through the rubber seconds after impact. Once the front wheel disintegrated, the bicycle flipped frontwards, launching the boy off. As Zane stood, he sensed an incoming object directly ahead of him. He opened his eyes and raised his left hand, catching a backpack from mid-air that was flying at his head. His aura. Zane tossed aside the backpack and looked for the boy who had crashed. As he expected, no boy was on the ground wailing in pain. He had felt the boy's aura manifest and change. He transformed. I know, said Zane, finishing her sentence. He began to walk forwards towards the item laying on the previously empty road. He reached down and grabbed the random lone pillow in the middle of the road. Finally, he recognized the aura that interested and confused him before. This is the unique power of a shapeshifter. Yulia watched on as Zane threw the pillow into the air above him. While falling, a blinding glow surrounded the fabric and dissipated almost immediately. The boy who had lost control of his bicycle not even a minute ago landed on his feet, giving a huge sigh of relief as he brushed himself off, surprised at the lack of bruises from his crash. The boy flashed a smile at Zane, but the demon responded with only criticism. Why a pillow?
Well, thinking I was gonna get hurt from the fall, I decided to turn into the softest thing I could think of. My pillow was the first thing that popped into mind.
Understandable, although his words seemed to resonate with those of a child. Suddenly, Zane was bumped aside by Yulia, who ran up to the boy with his backpack in hand. She bowed and held the bag up to him.
I'm so sorry for that. I hope you weren't hurt.
She apologized as if she had committed a crime. Zane noticed the boy's confusion. He read his expression and could tell the boy thought nothing of what just occurred. The boy gratefully accepted his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. However, Yulia remained bowed. Zane moved next to Yulia and put his hand on her shoulder, tugging her until she stood upright. I should be the one apologizing, but I'm not going to.
Zane?
No. Don't be mad at him. It may be hard to see it, but he actually saved me.
Destroying your bike and nearly breaking half your bones is saving you?
By the way, how did you know I was a shapeshifter when I was on my bike? I'm assuming you wouldn't have destroyed my bike without knowing I could stop myself from getting hurt.
I had a hunch when you said you couldn't stop. Your race is famous for not being able to control vehicles or anything of the sort. Quite an unfortunate downside to your powers.
Smart. My name's Nirav. Thanks for helping me out back there.
I sense no threat emanating from him. He just seems like a nice guy. But I'll be cautious, just in case. My name is Zane. I am the protector of my friend here.
Hi, Nirav. I'm Yulia.
Wait a moment. Did you say you were a demon?
No, actually. I said I was a protector, but I guess me shooting fire from my fists was evidence enough for you to reveal my race.
Sorry, I've just never met a demon before.
Don't worry about it, Nirav. A lot of people tend to be curious about Zane. Not many have the guts to ask, though.
Yeah, so...
He glanced behind him at his bicycle. It was now without wheels and severely damaged from the crash. The smell of burnt leather and plastic filled the air as the shapeshifter sighed at his ruined vehicle. Yulia noticed his expression.
Again, I'm so sorry about your bike. Did you want to walk with us the rest of the way to the school?
She asked. This caused Zane to look at her in disbelief. She glared back at him, wanting him to be sorry for destroying someone else's property.
I guess. Would that be alright?
He doesn't seem dangerous. Fine. I'll just keep a watch over him. Fine. Just don't make any moves towards Yulia, or else you'll end up like your bike. Zane kept a close eye on the student known as Nirav. He was a nervous boy. He continuously scanned his environment like a lost child, searching for his mother. Yulia tried to strike up conversation with him, but he only gave quick responses and proceeded to look down to the dirt beneath him. Nirav hadn't seemed shy when they first encountered him. Maybe what I said earlier was too harsh. Oh well. After scaling the rather small mountain in the heat, kicking stones and listening to the chirping birds, following the seemingly endless path in front of them, the three finally arrived at their home for the next 4 years, Benjiro Senior School. The school grounds were massive. Simply peering in from outside the gate gave the impression it was like a village. Yulia took a moment to study her new home. 2 black-bricked towers flanked the spiked, rusting gate, which currently held them at bay. Long windows ran along each face of the tower. Yulia cast her eyes about and realized these would give a view of all the mountains surrounding the school. Several yards inside the gate sat a black brick building. The path from the gate led straight up the steps to its door. Yulia craned her neck to see beyond this and was overwhelmed by the scale of the school, when she saw more buildings and ancient towering trees. Yulia stepped closer to Zane, wrapped her right arm around his left, and held his hand. He could sense the fear emanating off of Yulia. I guess this is rather intimidating in a sense. Hopefully she'll get used to it and stop being so clingy.
Excuse me, you three!
A voice called from the right tower. Zane looked over to see a man behind a glass case, sitting and staring at the teenagers. The Protector and his master walked over to it side by side, while a lonely student paced behind the two with his hands in his pockets. All three left their luggage at the gate.
If you're students, please state your names one at a time.
He asked politely, with a brief smile to finish. The Protector looked down at Yulia, who had yet to let go of him. She caught his gaze. Zane nodded encouragingly, and the nervous girl looked to the man behind the glass.
I'm a student, and my name is Yulia Edrea.
Zane noticed the man type into his keyboard on the desk, but he only typed Yulia instead of her whole name. He clicked on his mouse and the screen became brighter and reflected a hint of blue onto his face. 2 clicks later, he asked,
Next?
I'm also a student, Nirav Pendar.
The man proceeded to slowly type Nirav's first name, whispering the name to himself a few times to guess the spelling. Eventually he spelt it out correctly, and 2 clicks later, looked up at the intimidating Zane.
And you?
I am a protector, not a student.
Oh, okay.
The man's expression changed. He picked up a phone nearby and dialed a number. Once his call connected, all he said was,
The Protector is here.
and after a few seconds, hung up.
I'll open the gates for you. If you three could please wait out front of the first building you see, someone will come and greet you.
Nirav and Yulia nodded, while Zane absorbed the information. The man clicked a button under the desk, and the gates started to creak slowly open. He smiled at the three while they thanked him and walked over to the gates. Once it was halfway open, they grabbed their luggage and stepped through to enter the grounds of Benjiro Senior School. After a few minutes to take in the surroundings, the door of the building in front of them opened up. A woman in a grey blazer and dark blue skirt stepped out. Her high heels clattered with each step down the stairs in front of her. She oozed confidence, from her correct posture to her neatly tied and styled hair. She stood in front of the 3 teens and scanned each of them. She flicked her wrist and looked down at her watch to see the time.
Good morning, you three. I am Mrs. Keiko, a teacher here at Benjiro Senior School. It's a pleasure to meet you, Zane and Yulia. And who might you be?
Oh, my name's Nirav. Good to meet you.
I don't believe I needed to see you.
Mrs. Keiko gestured to the tall building on her right.
If you could please go to the boys' dormitory, there is a male teacher roaming around. Find him and say you are new. He'll accept your introduction papers and find you a room.
Nirav nodded, then looked at Yulia and Zane.
See you guys around.
Yulia waved goodbye, while Zane merely nodded. Mrs. Keiko returned her attention to the 2 remaining.
Alright, now, Yulia. I'll need you to head to the opposite building. Simply follow the same instructions as your friend. Find the female teacher roaming around and say you're new. She'll sort you out.
What about Zane?
I've been asked to bring your protector to see the principal. He wishes to have a meeting with him.
Zane paused for a few seconds, peering around him and looking to the girls' dormitory. After just arriving to an unfamiliar location, his senses told him leaving Yulia now would be the worst idea.
I can assure you, Zane, she is completely safe here.
He glanced at the teacher who kept her composure and recognized his uncertainty.
I'll be fine, Zane. I'll stick in the dormitory until you return.
Zane finally submitted and agreed. Yulia embraced Zane for a quick hug, while he merely patted her on the back. Afterwards, she grabbed her suitcase, took a deep breath, and walked over to the girls' dormitory. Zane watched on as she approached and entered the building. Once inside, he turned back to the teacher. She smiled and nodded.
I'll take your luggage. Please proceed to the principal's office.
Zane wandered throughout the school grounds until he found an old, large cottage with a sign proclaiming principal's office nailed above the door. The building looked like it had been beaten up and restored, as it contrasted between old peeling paint and fresh new paint. Zane studied the building and wildlife as he neared the door. Plants and bushes covered the ground near the stone steps and were accompanied by the rustling of small creatures within them. Zane wasn't afraid, but he took a deep breath and prepared himself for some authority figure to bug him about safety, like the principal of their old school. As he attempted to knock the door with his knuckle, it slowly creaked open by itself, like a gust of wind pushed it, but the midday air was still. Slowly, the door opened all the way on its own. He was cautious, but Zane felt compelled to step inside the dark cottage. Although nothing was visible, he sensed a powerful presence inside. This aura feels familiar. He had only taken a single step into the shadows, when some force seemed to bounce off him. Zane wasn't sure how to feel. The force didn't cause any pain. It just piqued his curiosity.
Hello? Please enter, Zane.
The principal already knows who I am. Zane took another 2 steps into the building. After a few seconds, the darkness became brighter as his yellow eyes flared. His natural ability kicked in. A chair with its back turned sat behind a desk. An intense aura filled the room.
Close the door, please.
He turned around and did as he was asked, grabbing the door and closing it with an easy push. When the door clicked shut, there was an answering click of fingers, and the room was illuminated by a dark red beam coming from the roof. Zane turned back to the desk and could make out a figure of a man in the chair which had turned to face him. Zane walked towards the desk. Once he saw the man's eyes, he stopped and smirked. I thought that aura seemed familiar. So the principal of this school is also a demon.
Indeed. It has been a long time since I last met a fellow demon. It is a pleasure. Please, let's talk.
He gestured to the seat opposite him. Zane walked over and sat, flicking his hood off whilst doing so. He was still cautious. Something about the way the principal kept a sharp focus on him made him weary. Despite this, he felt unusually comfortable. He couldn't tell why. I feel weird.
Comfortable? At ease?
Responded the principal with a reassuring tone. He proceeded to look up at the dark red beam above him.
This is a special beam designed by myself. It's nothing impressive, but I found this red light causes me no irritation. It illuminates my office with a small amount of red light. It's bright enough so my natural instincts make everything around me completely visible.
He must be intelligent if he is able to create such a tool. It's helpful to only demons. That's impressive.
Indeed. Now, the reason I've called you here, from what I gather, you are a protector. You are 17, going on 18. You are not enrolled here as a student, but instead, you are here to accommodate and protect a girl named Yulia Edrea, who is only just younger than you. Am I right so far?
Yes, that is correct. That is the only reason I am here.
I've never had another demon at this school before, so I am eager to let you roam our halls. May I ask you something?
Sure.
What is your reason for becoming a protector? I mean, I never chose such a path. Instead, I became a teacher. Later on, a principal. You could have done anything with your life, but you chose to undertake the contract of looking after another. Why?
I didn't. The first thing I ever remember is meeting Yulia at the age of 10. I have no recollection before that. Yulia's mother asked that I become her protector. With no other purpose or place to stay, I accepted. Somehow I was always naturally good at fighting and using my powers. Little practice was needed. Yulia's mother is kind to me, friendly, caring. As well, Yulia doesn't treat me as a servant, even though I am hers. There is no other use for me in this world. Protecting Yulia is all I know.
Zane, every person has potential in this world. I'm sure you hold greater value than just being a protector. In fact, I know you do.
I appreciate your sentiment.
Now, Zane, I plan on letting you stay here. I wish to allow more diverse races into my school. However, I have a request, if that's okay.
A request? I'll hear it.
I know you take your role as a protector seriously, but I ask that you do not harm any students in this school unless it is for protection of yourself or Yulia. Some will already fear you by simply knowing your race, so anyone getting hurt out of the blue might cause a panic. If retaliation in the name of protection is clear and evident, then it should not be an issue.
That seems fair.
Oh, great. Now, we need to talk about where you'll be staying. Mrs. Keiko took your luggage off you, didn't she?
Zane nodded.
Excellent. Now, please follow me.
Zane sat up and followed the principal outside of the office. As soon as the door opened, the sunlight poured into the room, irritating Zane after the comfort of the dimness. He scowled and flicked his hood on. They started walking through the school until they reached the front, where Zane last saw Yulia heading for the girls' dormitory. A sudden realization that Zane might have to stay in the boys' dormitory bothered him. Where exactly am I staying?
To make your job easier, I was able to get an old storage shed renovated and extended to practically become a small cabin, and it's located right next to the girls' dormitory, so you and Yulia can meet up every morning to attend classes together.
Once looking around the outside of the girls' dormitory, Zane noticed the cabin that sat nearby. It seemed a very generous size for a single person. Wow, that's very considerate of you. The cabin door burst open from the inside, and Yulia stepped out. She saw Zane and waved at him.
Zane! Get your butt over here!
Well, come on.
Both demons walked over to the cabin as Yulia and Mrs. Keiko stepped out. The four of them stood in a small circle.
Your cabin is amazing! It's spacious, it's got a kitchen, there's even a training room with gym equipment.
Sounds fit for my job. What's your room like?
It's got space, but barely anything in it. I need to decorate it as soon as... Oh!
Yulia paused mid-sentence when she noticed the tall man standing alongside Zane.
Sorry, I don't exactly know who you are.
Miss Edrea, how could you not recognize...
Keiko, it's all right. I am Lyulf, the principal of Benjiro Senior School, and like your protector, I am also a demon.
This made Yulia's eyes widen. She was startled slightly, but then got excited.
demon! That's so cool! It's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. Zane, Yulia, I'd like to welcome you to Ben Jiro's senior school.